In terms of basic skills and natural gifts, how does one know they should be a screenwriter?
It's a great question, and amazing to us how few people ask that question. People decide they want to be a screenwriter because they like movies way too often.
Or maybe they don't even like movies, but they just had an idea that they thought could be a movie.
There's not enough of people stepping back and saying, what are the essential skills of this field, and do I have them? And do I have them in like the top 10% or even 5%?
And am I willing to hang in there long enough to develop?
Yeah,
these skills?
I think that the number right now is 2% of the members of the Writers Guild of America make a living as screenwriters. So that means 98% are doing other things too, and but we think this comes back to just a failure to really stand back and say, what natural abilities should I have to be a good screenwriter, right? So right off the top, you got to have what we call a honed story sense. A honed story sense. This is somebody who has instincts about story. And we don't know where you get this except from having read a lot of stories. So one of the things we say all the time is great writers are great readers. So you want to get good instincts about a great character. Well, you do this by reading the Arabian Nights and the Greek myths and the Brothers Grimm and the Arthurian tales and Count of Monte Cristo, and then as you move up, read the Russians, read the great novels, read Dickens and the Brontes. Like, you should be, as a storyteller, somebody who is in the company of storytellers as your preferred place to be.
And you've probably been devouring this your whole life. And this is something that is developed, from kindergarten on, is this sense of always wanting to be in story. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a natural inclination that speaks well to, a screenwriting career.
Story is like instinct, This is a high stakes choice. This is a real crucible situation. Some people have that instinct and some people don't. And if they don't have it, you're sitting there it's like trying to explain to a duck why they should fly south. Really hard, they just don't get it. And so when we meet somebody like that has no instincts in story, we know, I just want to tell them, in fact, we give them a list of the 100 most influential stories ever written. And I say, go read, start knocking these off one a month, and in 5 years, you'll be ready.
And I would say the difference between, say, a novelist and a screenwriter is in addition to all of these great books, screenwriters also watch a lot of movies. They've seen all the classics. They are up on what all the Academy Award winners are for that year, and they have a good sense of what's going on in their genre that they're interested in. They're just constantly taking in, and they're also reading scripts. It's really important for screenwriters to read what's on the written page in screenplay form, because that's going to say so much about, it's really just going to speak to everything that they need to know technically about how to tell a story on the screen.
I mean, a second essential skill that you got to have is a sense of the moment. That movies are combinations of beats and moments, right? Beats are something happens in the plot. Somebody makes a choice and it leads to this consequence. So that's part of the story sense, a choice, something happening. But moments are the emotional stakes underlying that choice. So, when you think of a movie like Titanic, what's the moment? Those two standing on the bow. Everybody can see that moment, right? Yeah, I'm the king of the world, right? But that was a great moment that resonated with people. So having a sense of where are the moments in my movie. One of the complaints that we hear in the notes we hear from people about movies today, right? And the subtext complaint is, I just sat through a 2-hour movie where there were no moments. There was a lot of beats, a lot of stuff happened, but I never felt an emotional kind of plateau, an emotional peak in this movie. I never felt like I wanted to laugh, or I wanted to cry, or I felt outrage. Like, I never felt that. So this idea of a writer having kind of a gut sense of what makes a peak emotional moment. You know, what is that and it's a psychological thing. It's a psychological dynamic. So the writer needs to be a psychologist and be able to say, in my story, where are the 2 or 3 key emotional moments that I need to take, like the movie, the pace needs to slow down, and we're gonna really go into it and kind of saturate the audience in this experience emotionally, really have them crescendo in this kind of whatever if it's pathos, if it's sadness, if it's anger, if it's fear, whatever it is. And so a lot of times when I'll say to the writers, what are the key moments in your movie? They'll look back and they'll be like,
stuff blows up.
Yeah, stuff blows up. When the ship sinks. It's like, no, it's not when the ship sinks. It's when the ship sinks and what that does to her, the character, etc.
So letting it land, in a sense. It's not, because I see a lot of stuff today that it almost goes there, but it moves so fast.
It just keeps moving. Yeah, yeah. And I would say with independent film, you also have the reverse problem where if you have too many moments, it's not going anywhere. You're just sitting there watching people emote, and then there's no pace. There's no dramatic tension in that regard, and it just fizzles out. But yes, I think that there's, both of them are dangers for sure.
And we list actually 7 in our book essential skills for screenwriters. I think those are the 2 key ones there. But the main thing is that to approach this field as something that you have been made to do because of your natural gifts. You don't just do it because you're like the glamour of the business or the Hollywood thing, all of that stuff. No, you do it because you were made to do this because the gifts you have are geared towards this. And so one of the things we do in mentoring writers at Catharsis is to help them try to figure that out. Do you have the chops to do this professionally, or is it going to be a hobby for you?
Yeah, because there's raw talent, there's natural inclinations, but then there's also 10 years of hard work of applying skills and building on skills and really strengthening your muscles and being able to be the right person to tackle the project. And that's a long-term investment. It's a marathon. And it really does take both in order to have a career.
And and I would say you can have the skill set level also determines where you're going to play in this business, right? So I have a sister, she's a professional opera singer, and she's like, the top 2% of opera singers sing at the Met. The top 10% sing in San Francisco, Denver, Chicago. The top 20% sing in Portland, Seattle, whatever. So in other words, it's possible to be a dramatic writer, writing for the screen, but not necessarily playing at the Hollywood studio level. You can be writing web series content that will get an audience of the 100,000s or even the tens of thousands. Your skill sets can take you there. You can be in the indie world where you'll get in your lifetime 3 checks for $20,000 for different projects, right? But you can make a little movie that will get seen by tens of thousands of people in a few festivals. I think that you don't have to say, if I can't play it at the top level, then I can't play at all. So one of the things we try to do in our mentoring of the writers, figure out where your skill set is going to put you. What percent, where do you fall in terms of the most influence, the most impact, the most money? How are you competing? Because again, don't set yourself up for failure. If you're only in the top 10% of writers, then don't try to play in a field where the top 2% are going to be the ones who make a living out of it.
And screen storytelling is so diversified now that there's no reason to not find your niche at this point. So.